This
Yes.
con
All right, let's take questions and then move forward. So yes, I was looking at your project only. And very firstly, as I said, you'll have to install SSMS. And when you install SSMS, you're asking, how do I pass the username and password? You don't have to. The point here is that you don't even have to out here. SSMS is just being used so that you have that particular SQL package.exe. Once you install the SSMS, go to your project settings out here in the agent. Look at the capabilities of the agent. There is something known as SQL package that got installed because you installed something. I'm sorry. Yes, that's the reason you have this SQL package.exe. What I'm trying to tell you is that you don't have to go ahead and give your SQL server name and the password out there every time. Your pipeline is going to use that particular SSMS, connect to that particular SQL server, and then deploy your code. That's the very first thing. Second thing, your pipeline is still failing. I deployed the earlier release out here. Reason being, it's just telling there is something called invoke-SQL command (CMD). It's not a recognized commandlet function, which means that your PowerShell script that you have right now, it doesn't have this particular module called as the invoke SQL command module out here. You just have to go ahead and install this particular SQL module, which is SQL Server. Just say install hyphen module az.sql server, install this out, import the module out, and then you can go ahead and let's say run all your commands out here as such. So couple of things out here. So I've seen that at the end you went ahead and used a hosted agent, but you can use a self-hosted agent provided you install SSMS and also go ahead and install the PowerShell module for the same thing out there, because at the end it's going to use a PowerShell command out here. So if you just go by this logic, it's not a recognized commandlet function. AZ module, it's just an AZ module out here. So go to this one, invoke SQL command, SQL server, you can check SQL command and all that stuff. Yes, get hyphen module, SQL module, etc. Just do the import out here, okay? Import FL SQL server module. See whether this module is there or not. I think you haven't installed any module out there, right? You haven't done any module installation. Install the modules. Install all the AZ modules, and then your machine will start what's working out there. Yes, coming back to our project. Yes. Anyone, any questions? Anyone, any more questions out here? Anyone, any questions? Again, we now have two build pipelines, two repositories. One being our SQL web app repository, wherein you have something like SQL app and all these things out. The other is my infrastructure repository that has all my ARM templates out here as such. And then I have pipelines, which is in the form of build and release pipelines out here. So in the build pipeline, I have something called SQL web app build, which is going ahead and building my code, which is nothing but doing a .NET restore, .NET build, .NET publish, and etc. And at the end of it, it's going ahead and giving me the artifacts out here. And then I have one more pipeline, which is called infra copy pipeline out here, which is going ahead and giving me something known as the .json file as the artifact. And in the release pipelines, I am making use of both the artifacts out here. I'm making use of both the artifacts, and I am linking both the artifacts out here into my release pipeline out here as such. So I'm taking both the artifacts, linking it to the release pipeline, and once I'm linking it to the release pipeline out here, I have a couple of tasks inside it. First thing is to create the infrastructure, and also very importantly, guys, I am declaring all the variables that I need to my pipeline out here as such, and then come down to the tasks. Something create infrastructure, app service deploy, SQL task. Finally, going ahead and adding a SQL task out here. And again, if you want to run this on a self-hosted agent, go ahead install SSMS. And also, I see that you're doing on a Windows 10 machine. I probably believe that you're not getting a Windows Server operating system out here, probably. But when you're doing a self-hosted, always and always make sure to run it on a server operating system. It's a server operating system that we need, not the home operating system. It's okay for now. It's okay right now. You can go and run it on a home operating system. I'm good with that. But when you work in a real-time environment, please make sure to use a server operating system out here. Yes. Any questions still here, guys? Anyone? Any questions still here that I can take?
Hi, sir.
Anyone? Good, please.
Sir, while merging from a future branch to a develop branch, I
Hmm.
need to approve now. Pull request is completed. So when
Hmm.
I am approving that, it is saying that merge policies.
Okay.
So it is not approving, sir. I am getting that problem, sir. So I on that what that? Yeah,
Hmm. So you're approving, but your pull request is not getting merged.
yeah, yes, sir.
Can anyone tell me why this is happening? Approving, but the pull request is not getting merged.
Sir,
Can anyone tell me what is the issue with the policy? I'm sorry.
I did everything what you did, sir, but I am not
Okay.
getting that.
So the problem here is that Ranjit here has an issue that he has a branch. He has a code in this branch. He's put some branch policies. When he's merging the pull request, he's giving the approval, but it's still not getting merged. Ranjit, what is the error that you're getting, or what exactly are you getting out here?
I'm not getting any error, but it's saying just to playing, sir. That is, it is not
So
getting any error. It is not merging. That's it.
it's not merging. That's it. Okay, fine. But are you getting any message while you approve it? Does it tell you one reviewer besides the author must approve it? Something like that.
Uh,
If you look
I
at the
have
pull
given
request.
one review, sir, and automatically merged. Also, I have given that option also.
Right, but
Everything. Yeah.
does your branch policy say allow
Oh,
requesters to approve their own change?
yeah, I have given, sir. But
Okay,
it I removed the branch policies and I did it work out. But when I am doing with the branch policies, it is not working, sir.
sure. So please send me a screenshot on what is, let's say, the message that you're getting, and also when you send me a screenshot of your pull request, please make sure to include the screenshot for your branch policy, so that I can see what is the branch policy that you have, and then
Okay.
accordingly I can comment on why that is happening and what can be done better in order to, let's say, avoid that situation.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes. Any more questions here? Anyone? Any more questions here? Anyone? Any questions still here?
Excuse me.
Good, please.
After cloning the repository
Mm-hmm.
into the VS Code,
Okay.
when I commit at that point of time, I'm getting error.
Okay. What's the error that you're getting when you're commenting it out?
I'll just read out. One moment, I'll tell you.
Okay. Yes. Any questions till then?
Yeah, like Git log, uh,
Okay.
C
Okay.
program files and all that, using Git
Okay.
2.0.
All right. And what's the error really telling? If you open the Git log, what is the error telling?
It it is opening in the file, but
Okay.
when I used to commit to save any changes in that particular repository, it is showing error.
Right. But what is the error talking about? What is the error really telling here? When you
Mm,
say there is an error.
Username and email ID I have already given, sir. It's the
Okay. But
same error it's showing.
mhm. Can you
Git
again try
config.
to give me? Yes. Can you again try to reset the username and the email address once again, please? Can you just go ahead do a git global configuration and run that command and
Okay.
reset your email and then the username? Once you do that,
Mm-hmm.
restart your machine and reopen VS Code and then try, let's say, to comment out.
Okay.
Okay, just try that. Let me know if it still doesn't fix so that I can have a look at that. Just
Okay.
go, please. Okay.
Mm.
Okay. The app service deploy, you mean? No, deployment you don't have to choose there. It's just like you just take the app service deployment, and instead of taking a .zip file, when you build a Java code, you will get something called as a .jar file or a .var file. Deploy that out. You'll have a .var file and etc. Take instead of telling it as .zip, take the var and deploy it out. That should work. Is any more questions here? So to put all in all, we have right now repositories out here. So let's put that. So we have repositories. One being your code repository has a SQL code and etc. The other being the infrastructure repository out here. So code and the infrastructure repository out here. Two things that we do have right now. And the code repository has branches, policies, and all these things. And the code repository has a build pipeline associated with it, which is at the end of the day giving you a .zip file. And the infra pipeline, again you have a build pipeline here or a copy pipeline here, which is giving us simply nothing but a .json file. So you have a zip, you have a JSON, and you're integrating both the artifacts inside one single release pipeline. So both the artifacts are being consumed in this particular release pipeline, which has tasks like ARM template deployment, and then you have Azure web app deployment or web app deploy. So I'll say web app deploy. And then we have something like SQL server injection. So you have your file, you're injecting that into the SQL server out here. And we are doing all this deployment for one particular environment called development. It's a development environment that I'm doing all these things for. And I'm controlling all the values using key value pairs out here. Now, if I want to go ahead and create a same environment for testing, let's say for the QS, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say something called clone. I'll hit this clone button and I will say it is QA. Let's come into the QA right now. Do you think I should make any changes here? Resource group, connection is okay. Subscription, is it okay? Should I change the subscription? Yes, no, maybe, no. Resource group, should I change the resource group? It will be a different resource group. It will be a different resource group, which is in dev. In the case of dev, it was what? Dev hyphen RG. In the case of QA, it is what? QA hyphen RG out here. Location, you can change it. You can have a different location or the same location. I'm okay with that. Template, do you change it? Do you have to change the template? Not changing the template because it's the same template, generic template, no hard coded values out here. Values. SQL server name has to be different. Database name can be the same, not a problem. App service name has to be different. Web app name has to be different. Username, password can be the same. SKU can be different. It can be same, can be different, not a problem. Which means I'll have to change my variables. So now if you see, I only have one set of variables, which is telling me app service name is something like this, user name, and etc. I have all these things out here, which means I have to create altogether a different set of variables. And also one thing that you'll have to notice here is that, see these variables that I declared, right? They apply to the entire release. When I say to the entire release, these variables can be used by development. These variables can be used by QA also. I don't want that to happen. These variables called app service plan and etc., which is dev plan 01, should be only and only be used by an environment or a stage called development. So I'll just scroll to the right. There is something called as a scope of a particular variable, and in here I have a variable scope to what? Release. I will change the scope and I will say that this is scope to development. I can add one more variable here telling ASP name. I'll say QA plan 01, scope it to QA, which means I have two values with the same key called ASP name and ASP name, but different values here, and also the scope is different. So if I just filter it out, saying ASP, I have ASP name called dev and QA, dev scope to dev, QA scope to QA environment out here. Now in the same way, I will have to also have a value for my location, or let's say if I put it in the same location, both dev and QA, I'm okay with that. I'll just scroll down. RG name. Now tell me, should the RG name be a value scope to a release or scope to an environment? Scope to an environment, because this RG name called dev RG should only and only apply to something called as development, which means if I just scroll here, I'll say something like development out here. Now if I go doing this again, I now have to add one more RG name here telling what? RG name QA hyphen RG scope to what? QA. I have to change my scope to QA. Now if I keep doing this, right, I will again end up adding, let's say, SQL DB name, SQL server name, username, password, web app name, which means if there are two environments, which is dev and QA. So initially when it was dev, so let me refresh the screen once again. I'm not saving this out. Initially when it was dev, I had ASP name which is unique, location which is unique, SKU which is unique, resource group unique, SQL server name unique, and also the web app name which is unique. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, or 4, 5, 6 values which are unique to dev. If I add one more environment called QA, do you think I'll need 6 more values for this? For app service plan name, RG name, and all these things. If I had stage, don't you think I need 6 more values for this? Meaning if I add each and every environment, I'm adding 6 more values to it for 3 tasks. Just for 3 tasks, I'm adding 6 more values to it out here. Imagine there are 30 tasks in your pipeline. Imagine there are about 60 values per an environment. Now at the end of the day, imagine you have dev, QA, stage, production, and all these things. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It'll become 60 into 4. 240 values that I need to declare and also maintain. If something changes, my pipeline, everything will, let's say, kind of fail. Which is not right in the way I'm declaring. Again, if you see, I have an app service plan. For example, this is the scope in which I'm working. The name of the app service plan, let's say ASP name, is called dev plan 01 for an environment called development. It should be the same thing, but QA plan 01 for an environment called QA, stage plan 01 for an environment called stage, and then I have prod plan 01 for an environment called production. Same thing applies to my web app name. Some web app name starting with dev for dev, QA for QA, stage for stage, prod for prod. This is what I need. Also same thing for SQL server name. I need dev, QA, stage, and prod. Which means that if you observe this, right, plan 01 is same. The only thing that is changing is what? dev for dev, QA for QA, stage for stage, and all these things. So I'll do one thing. I'll just scroll down and add one more value called env, environment or team name, whatever it is. I'll say dev dev for someone called what? Development. I'm changing the scope to something called development right now. So now I'm telling environment is dev for someone called development. I'll come back to my pipeline. I'll say clone. I will say QA. Go to my variables. As and when I do that, right, I have automatically Azure DevOps gave me one more environment variable telling, okay, fine, you might need one more environment. Scope to what? QA, whose value is QA. If I do one more environment called stage, Azure DevOps is going to add one more environment here called QA. I mean, I'll just say change it to stage. What? Stage out here. And I'll say one more environment called prod. Go to my variable section, just scroll down. I have an environment called prod. Scope to what? Prod out here. So 4 different environment variables out here. What I'm going to do right now is that instead of telling app service plan name is dev plan 01, I will say it is dollar env plan 01 out here. What's going to happen right now is, let's see here, just select scope called development. Here you have what? Dev. And if I put a scope called release, now what is going to happen is, let's say ASP name. Okay. Let's say ASP name. ASP name is telling what? Environment plan 01. And here dollar environment again is a variable that is scope to what? This particular environment called what? Development, with a value called what? Dev. Which means that your release will now start treating 2 different things. One being environment variables, the other being release variables. And release variables are generic in nature. I'm not changing the nature of it. So I'll say ASP name environment plan 01 scope to release. I'll say location ECS2. This is also scope to release. I'm okay if all my web applications are created, let's say, in one particular location. Sorry, I also logged the username for some odd reason. Fine. RG name. What should be the RG name out here? Dollar environment hyphen RG. So can I say instead of dev, I say dollar env hyphen RG. Should it be scope to development, or is it okay if I scope this to release? Release is okay because this is a generic value. Every value which is generic can be scoped to release. If it's specific to an environment, scope it to the environment. For example, I want SKU name to be F1 for development. So I'll say this is F1 for development, and the rest of the environment can use S1. So I will say SKU name, add one more value here, say S1 for the release. For the entire release, I'll say S1. But for development, I'll say this is F1 out here. SQL DB name, I want it to be, let's say, demo DB for everything. SQL server name should change. Instead of dev, I'll say it is dollar env scoped to release. I'll say username is okay. I'll take test user. Web app name again should be generic. I'll say it is dollar env web app SQL, something like this. Scope to release. Now I have so many variables out here. Now I have multiple environments, but I'm not, let's say, going ahead and declaring multiple variables. I just have, let's say, a couple of variables out here that I mentioned. Everything is generic in nature. I'll say save. I'll say added environments. Okay. I'll say create the release right now. And now I can choose which environment I want to create the release to. Is it development? Is it QA? Is it staging? If I just wanted to development, I can uncheck all these things. I can say development. In this case, I'll say development QA stage and prod. I'll say create. So release 4 right now got triggered. And let's see. In the development stage, let's go to variables. It's telling ASP name is what? Environment plan 01. Environment is what? Development. ECUS2 password. RG name is something. And SKU name is, let's say, S1 for release and let's say F1 for development. So that's the reason it's showing both of them. And then I have SQL DB name, I have SQL server name, I have username and password. Just go to the same thing in QA. Go to variables. Do you see what now the environment name is coming to be? QA. It is not telling it is dev. Based upon this value, the other values are decided like QA plan 1, QA web app, QA SQL server and etc. So I now have common values out here. Let me go back and let's see why is it waiting for the job. Let's refresh the screen. Yes, it got the agent and now it's going ahead and doing the deployment. And now again see, I have a lot of resource groups today, but I don't have the dev-rg. So this was now going to create a dev-rg, deploy the code there. Then it's going to move into something called QA. It's going to do the same thing in QA, but with different values. Like it's going to create a resource group with the name called QA-rg. And then it's going to create a SQL server called QA SQL server. It's going to create a QA web app. It's going to create a QA plan and etc. And then it's going to go ahead and deploy all these things. So it's now going to create the infrastructure. And here it's telling it is dev-rg. Just hold for a second. Come to the initialize job. Come here. Let's check. I'll say Control F. Here, what Azure DevOps will do is that even before it's going to go ahead and start your pipeline, it's going to understand what are all the variables that I need. What are all the variables that I require? Let me do a variable resolution, meaning let me understand what is the name value pair out here. For example, I'll say RG name. What is the RG name coming out to be? Dev RG. But on the variable, what is it? It's env-rg. But you have another value called env, which is, let's say, scope to what? Let's say it's pointing to dev, scope to development, and all these other variables like ASP name, RG name, and etc. are using them or are using these. So let's come here. Let's go to initialize job and let's say web app name. What is your web app name coming to be right now? Dev web app and etc. So Azure DevOps is smart enough to understand what are the variables that are scoped to a particular stage or a particular environment and take that value, and the rest can be generic. For example, let's say SQL server name. It's telling dev SQL server. Then I have something like ASP name. It's saying what? Dev plan 01 out here. If I do the same deployment on QA, the values are going to change. It's going to be QA plan, it's going to be QA-RG, it's going to be QA web, QA SQL server, and etc. And in here also, it should have created by now. So it's now creating, it's created something called dev-rg out here. And inside the dev-rg, it's now creating the SQL server and etc. So if I go here, it's now doing the deployment. It's creating your SQL servers, it's making everything ready.